Now to the Trump administration, which earlier this week said it would withdraw 700 federal agents from Minnesota. The people there in the Twin Cities say they have not noticed a difference. The New York Times spoke to residents of the Minneapolis area who told the paper it's as if there has been no reduction in agents at all. On social media, neighbors shared videos from an early morning raid on an apartment building in Minneapolis involving more than a dozen federal agents. Brenda Lewis, the superintendent of a public school district outside Minneapolis, told the paper that on Wednesday, 6 ICE vehicles drove back and forth in front of an elementary school, and a school board member was followed from her home. At the end of the day, she said, immigration agents were once again nearby during school dismissal. An elementary school. It comes after educators in Minnesota filed a federal lawsuit accusing DHS of unlawfully sending agents to schools and bus stops.
Our students can't learn, our educators can't teach, and when there are masked, armed agents outside of classroom windows, sometimes for days and days, that leaves our students and educators traumatized. Although it pains me to say this, one of the greatest threats to the health and safety of Minnesota's school-age children right now are the ICE and Border Patrol agents in our state.
Let those words echo there. Meanwhile, a recent independent analysis shows that the number of children detained by ICE has skyrocketed during President Trump's second term. One of those children include a 2-year-old girl taken into custody with her father in Minnesota last month. MS Now exclusively obtained this video showing the Ecuadorian immigrant father clutching his baby girl, who's named Chloe, close to him as federal agents force him into a dark van. The father can be heard repeating to the agents that he wants to keep holding his baby, afraid, he later explained, that they would take her away from him. Let's bring in MS Now senior political and national reporter Jacob Soboroff. He joins us live from Los Angeles. Also with us, the host of Politics Nation on MS Now, the Reverend Al Sharpton. He's, of course, the president of the National Action Network and contributing opinion writer for the New York Times, Molly Jong-Fast, also here. Jacob, good to see you. We'll begin with you. You spoke to this father about this traumatic encounter. We saw a little bit of it there on video. What did he tell you? And what more can you share with us about the increase in young children who are being taken into ICE custody?
Well, Chloe is one of many, Jonathan. The Marshall Project has done some extraordinary reporting, which we cite in this article that you can see on ms.now, of the extraordinarily exponential increase in the amount of kids that have been detained in this Trump administration over the last Biden administration. What's unbelievable about this story is that we actually rolled up on January 22nd. We were driving around South Minneapolis, Connor Barrick, our photographer, and myself, and on the left-hand side of our vehicle in an alley, we saw a massive operation unfolding. We didn't know what it was or who the subject was, whether they were targeting a drug dealer or a murderer. It certainly looked like it was something extreme. But it turns out that what we had approached was actually the detaining of Elvis, 25-year-old, with no criminal record, and his 2-year-old daughter, Chloe. They were put through an extraordinary experience of, despite a judge's order, being sent to Texas, being returned to Minneapolis. This video was obtained by Kay Guerrero, our producer at MS Now, that showed us who actually was up that alley that we were on the other side of. And so we Kay tracked down Elvis and his family to talk to him about what he has gone through. He is currently detained in the Sherburne County Jail in Minnesota. Little Chloe, 2 years old, and her mother, Nicole, are not. But all three of them are likely headed back to Ecuador soon. Here's a little bit of what Elvis told me about the ordeal that he went through and what it was like and how it was to experience this.
My reaction was to lock the car and not open it. They kept telling me to roll down the window or open the door. I just hugged my baby. Then one agent, I think he was Mexican, told me to call my wife so she could take the baby.
So you thought it was a trap?
Yes.
Not only, Jonathan, did he think it was a trap, but the actual tactics of the officers, those agents, he says harmed his 2-year-old daughter, Chloe. He says that when they tried to take him from the vehicle, they smashed the window, and ultimately she was injured. Here's what he had to say about that. Watch this.
When they broke the window, she started crying. And when the glass shattered, my baby's little hand was right there. She had red marks and some blood.
The Department of Homeland Security has said over and over again they're going after the worst of the worst. And when we asked the Department of Homeland Security about this case, this is what they told us about Elvis. They said Border Patrol identified Elvis Tipan Echeverria, an illegal immigrant from Ecuador who committed felony re-entry. We don't use children as leverage. We enforce the law that was passed by Congress. And that's in response to Elvis saying that he believed they were using little Chloe to pull the mother, Nicole, out and try to detain her as well. I want to be really specific about what Tricia McLaughlin said in that statement, that Elvis had committed felony re-entry. Elvis told us he's only entered the United States once and has never been previously deported. So that directly contradicts what the Department of Homeland Security is saying was their justification for going after him. And by the way, guys, he was just going out to get some fruit with his 2-year-old, which is when these agents started to follow him home. It wasn't a targeted operation at all, as this department says. And when we talk about who's in the middle of all of this, again, not the worst of the worst. People like little 2-year-old Chloe. You can't have mass deportation, Joe, without going after people like Elvis and Chloe.
Yeah, and Jacob, again, DHS is lying based on all the facts that we have on the ground. They're lying about this situation. They're lying, again, about using a 5-year-old boy as bait. I mean, and you're even hearing Republican senators deeply disturbed by what's going on. But it is remarkable that Donald Trump early on said he wasn't going to have a repeat of what happened in the first term. He told us that. He would not have a repeat of the first term where children are being ripped out of the arms of their mothers. But actually, Kristi Noem and DHS and ICE, seems that they're doubling down on that strategy.
Oh, yeah. What is mass deportation, Joe? It's just family separation by another name. It is not ripping apart children from their parents in the detention centers at the border, but it's taking the parents from their children in the interior of the country, as happened to little Chloe away from her father in this case, and for a brief time from her mother. Donald Trump told Tom Yamas the other day that maybe they're going to use a softer touch. Let me tell you, there is no softer touch when you are pursuing a mass deportation policy. It isn't possible. You can't just go after the so-called worst of the worst if you want to do what Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and Corey Lewandowski and Kristi Noem and Tom Homan and all the rest of them, doesn't matter what uniform Greg Bovino they're wearing or who they are, if they want to set a record in deportations, they're going to have to go after people without criminal records, and it doesn't matter how they sugarcoat it or what the president says about it. It's people like Chloe who are going to be at the middle of this. I'd encourage everybody to scan the QR code on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, because you can watch the full 7-minute documentary that we did on them, and it becomes very clear very quickly that you have to go after people like this little girl and her father if you want to hit the numbers that Stephen Miller has set for this administration, which is really what this is all about.
And there's no sign that Miller's influence in the White House has waned at all. The full exclusive report is available online at ms.now. Senior political and national reporter Jacob Soboroff. Jacob, thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Reverend Al Sharpton, I'll go to you next. Just get your thoughts here on that particularly wrenching case, but also to Jacob's point, if they're going to meet these goals, if they're going to hit these lofty quotas set by Miller, it's going to lead to more and more children ending up in moments like this.
No doubt about it. And I think the fact that they put these goals there, it puts a mindset in some of the DHS and ICE officers that they have to do whatever they have to do to reach those goals. And they are not looking at the letter of law or even what they're doing to be something that is conducive to just morality and what the public would accept. Snatching children, walking with their father to get some fruit and act like this is some targeted situation is insulting to our intelligence, but is also something that we should not tolerate as a democratic society. This is outrageous at any level.
I just wonder how much any of this, and I'm curious, Joe, what you think it is about distracting from Epstein. Like, these Epstein files came out last week. There's just so much information in there, so many redactions which seem to make no sense. It feels like there are a lot of redaction. You know, a lot of the victims were exposed. The Wall Street Journal had 43 victims' names exposed, pictures of victims, and then redactions of people where it does not seem as if they are victims.
Well, and redactions of people who are sending emails to Jeffrey Epstein that actually looks like they may have committed crimes.
Yeah.
And the Justice Department is protecting them while exposing victims. And that's why it doesn't make any sense, Wally, to bring Bill and Hillary Clinton to the Hill to have a showdown that's going to attract millions and millions of people for live TV, and then hundreds of millions of people watching online, watching on social media, the Clintons coming after Comer, and by extension Donald Trump, and asking all of the questions that this partial release and this redaction brings up. I mean, they are exposed. Republicans are exposed. The Trump White House is exposed. And why in the world they are bringing even more attention to this after trying to distract from it by going after the Clintons? Doesn't make any sense. And look what here, we put it up, but let me just, for people that are listening in their cars right now, let's put up what Hillary Clinton has written. She said, for 6 months, we engaged Republicans on the Oversight Committee in good faith. We told them what we know under oath. They ignored all of it. They moved the goalposts and turned accountability into an exercise in distraction. And then she says, let's have transparency.
Yeah.
Let's do this publicly. It's the last thing that the Trump administration wants, because it is bad news for them. It's bad news for Republicans.